Welcome back, everyone. Hey, we're coming right back into this story with Aaron Kinder. Where we last left off, he just got his orders to go to finance captain's career course. He's about to hit into some drama. Then we're going to go right into his time as a finance officer, then retirement, and then the things that he's doing outside of retirement. This is going to be a really great episode, especially if you're trying to be an entrepreneur. He dives into how he does his business, which we didn't cover last week. So I appreciate you coming back. Let's get back into it.
So needless to say, I leave. It's my time to do the transition to be a finance officer, right? So I actually put a refrat packet together. I actually submitted it to the squadron commander, and he actually never filed it. So he filed in garbage can, and when he did his change of command after we came back, right? I go to the S1. I'm like, hey man, where are we at with my refrat packet? I already submitted. He signed stuff. He's like, oh yeah, about that. He's like, yeah, the SCO said no one refrats on his watch. So now I'm calling up finance branch, like, hey, send me the career course now. The branch manager of finance, like, I got you. You got to go to finance like within a month. Here's your RFO, here's your orders, all the stuff that's kicking. So I'm telling the wife, hey, we got to go up to Fort Jackson, South Carolina from Georgia, because I got to go to the captain's career course for finance. And, she's like, I'm not going. I'm like, well, you kind of have to, like we're PCSing. And she's like, I'm not PCSing. I'm staying here. So I'm just like, oh, fine, stay here. I'll take one for the team. So I end up leaving my wife again to go up there. And captain's career course for finance is like half a year. It was like actually a little more. Because I was a branch detail guy, they had this other little school that you have to do, get you caught up for all the things you missed because you didn't do the finance bullet course, right? So that's a whole
Which
other
makes
month.
sense.
Yeah. So I do that, and then I go right into captain's career course, and then I'm there for the whole rest of the year. So altogether, I'm there like 7 months. It gets time to get your orders. Guess where the Army decided to put me? Back at Fort Stewart. I'm like, what the? Like, I just left this place. Matter of fact, my wife's still there, And sure enough, they put me back in Fort Stewart. I get to Fort Stewart. I'm like the finance XO at the 24th Finance Unit. Day one, go to work, meet everybody.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we're going to the 9 mil range tomorrow. So when you come back into work, make sure you bring all your gear. We're going to go to the range. All right, cool. I'm driving to work. I live an hour away. We chose to live there because my wife was finishing up her accounting degree. We'll live as close to college as possible so that you can, because you got the kids and everything too. And I'll do this nasty 1 hour drive to work there and back every day. So, and I've been doing this the entire time when I was an artillery officer, right? So
Yeah.
So now I'm doing it again as a finance officer. It's day 2, early in the morning, driving through the training area, and I get hit by a minivan, my car. I almost get killed. I get hit by a minivan. I go off the ditch, the whole back, and I was driving a little Toyota Yaris, a little 2-door economical car because I live an hour away, right?
Yeah, because you're an hour away. Yeah. Makes sense.
So I get hit by a minivan. It drives completely through the back of my car. The whole back of my car is missing from my seat behind me. And it knocks me off the road like a hockey puck. I go down the embankment. I hit a pine tree, and it knocks me back over, but I'm still kind of at an angle, right? So I'm trying to get out of the car. I'm buckled myself, not knowing that the rest of the car behind me is missing, right? And I'm literally like trying to open the door, and I'm like, I'm trying to get out of this thing. And the guy who hit me gets out, and he's standing on top of the embankment, just looking down, just watching me the entire time. Never comes to help me, right? And so I got the gravity of the door like weighing down on me, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like, so I find a way to get through. I get out, I crawl up the embankment, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, dude, you just hit me, What happened was there was a fire truck and an ambulance coming in towards us, right? And they were going to, I guess, an accident that happened that further back, right, that we didn't see. Well, I was, slowly moving to the right to give the fire truck and the ambulance some space, right, like you're supposed to do. Well, the guy in the minivan was like, nah, man, I'm going to drive right through it. Boom, and hit me, right? And that's how I got hit, right? So, needless to say, I almost get killed on day 2 on the job as a finance officer, recover through all that stuff. And then now I'm off to the races as being a finance officer with a finance unit. And now I'm learning the difference between combat arms and soldier service support, right? combat arms, go, 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 go. You give orders, people move. Soldier support world and finance. And I'm not saying they're bad. No, I was an officer in it. I'm just saying it's different. It's like a different army different, right? Like it's like we're moving at an up tempo that is like -3. So it's crazy slow. We get everything done, but it's super relaxed. It's like country club relaxed almost. And so one of the other captains, who was one of the comptrollers for from the comptroller office, he's an ex-infantry officer. He comes and talks to me. Hey man, you got to bring all this up tempo down, bro. You know, because this is like totally different beast here. Trust me. Trust me. You can't scream and yell and do things and bark orders here like you can in the real army. But here in the finance army, he's like, no, man, it just doesn't work that way. People's feelings get hurt here, right? And I was like, okay. So, yeah, that was my big lesson learned of just having to slow down tremendously. And then I ended up spending the whole rest of my career, from that point on as a finance officer. So I was a captain already, and so I did all the rest of my captain time as a finance officer. Got promoted to major, did all my major time as a finance officer. And at this point, now we'll fast forward to the very end. I'm sitting at 20 years already of active duty time, 23 years if you include my time in the Guard, right?
Okay.
And so it's time to get looked at for lieutenant colonel and stuff. I'm actually stationed in Hawaii at this moment in time. I did a deployment to Kuwait right at the tail end. So the whole fall of Afghanistan, I'm stationed in Kuwait. Well, before the fall of Afghanistan, I'm stationed in Kuwait. I'm a financial planner at this time, operational planner, and we're planning how to get all the money out of Afghanistan. We got all the money. We just left all the bombs and bullets and all the equipment, but we did get all the money. So we do all that. I come back and, I'm just like, you know what? I'm pretty much tapped out at this moment in time. I'm ready to come home and just be retired, do this transition and get my DD214 for the third time.
Right.
So, but one thing I've failed to talk about this entire time, Rob, and I think you know what it is. When I commissioned as a lieutenant with you, at this moment in time, I created a business. And I created a business and I had it parallel with me the whole rest of my officer career. And so I created a business in real estate tax recovery in the state of Florida. And so this is what we commissioned in 2007. So I created, while we were in college, 2006. But I kept it the entire time. And the whole time I was in the military, I just invested in my company. I didn't invest in the TSP at all.
Okay.
I didn't put no money in the TSP, which is what you normally do, right? I put everything in my company. And the reason why I put everything in my company is because I can manage it, I can control it. And everything I was learning in the Army as an officer, as lieutenant, like all the methodologies of planning, troop leading procedures, MDMP, Army design, like all this stuff, targeting when I was an artillery officer, I applied every bit of it in my business, right? And at the beginning, it didn't make sense. But as I was, paralleling a career in the Army and a business at the same time, and they never intersected. Like the Army, I was never doing business on Army time, right? It just,
Yeah. Fair.
I couldn't do that. But the things that the Army was teaching me, it was just going hand in hand in business. It's never going to be identical. You have to find that connective tissue. So I was doing this the entire time. So ultimately, I get to the very end when it's time to retire, and I'm just like, well, most people, when you retire, you're making a transition into the GS life, right? So you do 20 years, now you're going to do another 10 years in GS and retire from the government again. My dad did that. Growing up and watching my father go through his whole transition and learning from his challenges and the mistakes that he made and the troubles as a family we had to go through because of the transition of having to go from retirement to go find a job, and all that stuff. There's a lot of, when I realized I was going to be in the Army for a career, I was like, man, I'm going to have to do this differently because the path that I just observed my father do, not that it's wrong or bad, it's just a path that I think I can do better, right? But I have to make a plan. My dad told me, make a plan and stick with it. So I made a plan with this business and I stuck with it the entire time. I have it today. And this business has grown so much that when I retired in 2023 in Hawaii, I was already a millionaire. So I walked away from the Army, no problem whatsoever on my third DD214. But doesn't mean I didn't have challenges though, right?
Right.
Because
Of course.
I walked away, but before I walked away, I'm in my last 8 months of the Army, and I'm a comptroller in the comptroller's office. I'm in Hawaii, and I'm trying to do less work, more plan on retirement, so you got to go through all the phases of all the things you got to go through retirement. You got to go through, all the training, the transition training that they give you and stuff. Now, I never did any of that the other two times, right? So this is all
Which
new to
I
me.
find is
Yeah. I never did any of that. So I'm like going through all of it with everyone else, right? And, of course, it's just a little different for me because I see the struggle that everyone else is having. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like everyone's always asking these questions like, who are you going to work for? Who are you going to apply? What are you going to do? Are you going to, do that transitioned course where you're going to intern for somebody or whatever? And I'm like, for me, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just doing the motions. I have to go through all this stuff because everyone else does. But I'm firsthand observing the struggle that everyone else is going through. And part of me is, there's a little bit of fear, right? Because I'm just like, is it too good to be true? Like, did I create something that's too good to be true? Like, is this walk of leaving the Army this time going to just be like, well, see you later, Army? I would tell you that my job actually had me working literally to the last day I was in the Army. Part of it is my fault too. Part of it is my fault. So it's not like I had an overbearing leader that was like, hey, you need to be here logging in all the time. No, it's just that I still had so much loyalty to the Army that I felt bad for like not wanting to follow up with commitments and emails and things that, people need me. So I'm like, I better help them, better do that stuff. And so I literally worked to the bitter end, and it was time to leave. And
Mhm.
so I literally get everything packed up and get my DD214 and I sign out and I fly back home to Louisiana, and here I am. So I come back home to where I'm at. My parents are in their late 70s, so I came home to take care of them now, spend some time with family. A wife. So after the car accident that I got into, she divorced me soon after that and left me. And I never remarried. I just stayed single the whole rest of my career. And I had to be single. Being in the military is tough, right? And it's very
Mhm.
tough to build relationships with people. And it's very tough. The wars are going, right? Even though I'm a finance officer, wars are still going. Like you deploy as a finance guy. It's not like we don't, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so and so I remember dating ladies, and they're just like, "Hey, you're an Army officer." I'm like, "Oh yeah." They're like, "Oh, never mind." Like you deploy, and when you come back, you move somewhere else, and you expect me to quit my job and follow you. And I was like, "Well, that's true." And so, so it's like almost unattainable to have a relationship with anybody, right?
Mhm.
And so I just stayed single the entire time, and made my way, to where I am today now. So now I'm in the end, and I've been, I did not file my VA claim like right, kind of towards the end of my career. I literally waited till like I'd already come home, and I waited till almost the very last minute of like where the VA was calling me. It was like, "Hey, dude, you gonna file your letter of intent? Like, you kind of need to do this." And to be honest with you, I was just naive to the issue because I was so relaxed at like going through the out process when I was leaving that, man, I went to every meeting just like, yeah, whatever, I don't need to be here. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Well, I mean, you've already had a business for nearly 20 years that's
Yeah.
been growing,
So,
So
yeah,
like a lot of people they get when they get out, they start their entrepreneurship, they start their business. So you had started it, back in 2006 and you're
yeah,
getting out in 2023,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
it's been around for obviously almost 20 years today.
yeah.
So it's not like it was just something, flash in the pan, ride the
No, it
lightning.
wasn't.
It was
No,
it
it
was a
was
grind.
a long grind, a lot of lessons learned, a lot of stuff that the military taught me. I applied into the business. I took on business partners as well in the business. At one point, I had 5 different business partners. At this point, I have one. Those business partners, not all of them, most of them were either in the military too or ex-military. They'd already done their time, retired or whatever. And so when I was getting towards the end, I mean, my last 8 months, one of my business partners, who's a ex-military Army guy, and been my business partner for a long time already. Unfortunately, the pressures from the military and, going to war and stuff, unfortunately, the demons caught him. I had to learn like, oh my God, I have a business partner who just like, what do I do? Right. And I'm not retired yet. Well, last 8
Right,
months,
right.
man. And this happens, Joe. I had to go jump through all these hoops too at the same time, right? Going through retirement. So I was focusing more on that. I'm just trying to make sure that my commitment to his estate, because he's a business partner, was done properly, right? And so I can make sure that everything gets passed on to his estate properly. So his heir, he only had a son, and but his son's an adult now, right? And he's a GS
Okay.
employee. I'm just going through the stress of like having to learn what to do in this sort of situation, and so I devoted a lot of my time to write that, right, to make sure that his estate's going to be okay, right? And here's his thing: his son, I've never even met. Like his son knows about me in the sense that his father has a business with this guy named Aaron Kinder, who they collect delinquent real estate taxes in the state of Florida, right? And doesn't have my phone number, doesn't know where I'm at, right? And so I find out the hard way. My last conversation with my business partner, is in September of 2022, and we're chatting away. We're talking about all this new stuff we're going to do in Sarasota County, Florida. And we're actually texting each other on Facebook Messenger. And that's what we're doing. And, and he's just like, okay, great. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, 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 yeah. And he's like, our last words were like, hey, man. And he's telling me, right? Like he's texting me back. He's like, man, my TSP is in the dumps right now, because the stock market wasn't doing too great, right?
Right.
And of course, I don't have any TSP because I've been putting everything in my business, right? So I'm just like texting him back. Oh man, that sounds horrible. That's my final text, right? We get to the month of December. I hold meetings with all my business partners, because I'm about to prepare all the financials for our CPA. And I'm emailing, calling, smoke signals, nothing,
Yeah. Anything
nothing.
you
And
can.
it's not like him. And I'm just like, where's my buddy, right? Where's my business partner? And so I'm like, well, this is weird. So I leave it alone. We get into the month of January, towards the end of January. I've got all the financials, I've got the times, I got everything. And I shoot it when I get to this point, I always shoot emails out to all my business partners, and I CC them on the emails that I send to our CPA because I'm bringing all our financials to the CPAs. And so they're in on the email. So I'm emailing Steven, my business partner, along with the CPA. Hey, Steven, this is this is that. If you got any questions, hey, let me know because I haven't heard from you. And so CPA gets it. Cricket still from Steven. I'm like, man. And at this moment in time, I had that feeling like, oh my God, something's wrong. Something's real wrong. Right. And I'm like, I get on Facebook immediately and I'm looking for his Facebook page and I find his Facebook page. And that's when I find out, I got all the, hey, rest in peace, Steve, and all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, this just happened. But then this is where it's like hits me. Who do I call? Who do I talk to?
Yeah.
And who's his next of kin? I don't know. Right. And I'm like trying to think back. Because Steve and I used to work together in Saudi Arabia. I did a
Okay.
stint at the embassy in Saudi Arabia, or at USAMID, not necessarily embassy proper, but an ESCOM village. And he worked there with me. And that's how I met him. I'm trying to think back. And I'm like, he's got a son. So I'm going through his friends list and I'm just like, looking for anybody who has the same last name as him. And
Yeah.
then I find his son. And so I'm immediately reach out to his son. And that's when he tells me everything. So yeah, tough. It's tough. Transition I had to go through right at the last minute of having to lose a business partner this way, and go through this whole process and stuff. But
Right.
I would tell
While
you
you're
that,
still in.
yeah, I'm still in. I was still in at the time. It took even beyond longer than that.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
in
because
the
there's a
military
lot of legal
still.
things you got to go
It's
through,
not something
and
that happens overnight.
yeah.
So eventually we get everything all wrapped up and done and stuff for his son.
Right. Good.
So yeah, man, it was just huge lesson learned right at the end. So, I took, I think my transition at the end though, I guess I took a lot of other things for granted because I was so focused there on making sure like things were happening good for his estate. And I kind of slacked on going through all the normal stuff. Now, granted, I knew I wasn't going to apply for a job. I knew I didn't need to write a resume for somebody. I didn't have to go through all that stuff. I did witness everyone else, freak out about the transition and stuff. And I could feel their pain. And it reminded me as a kid when my dad retired from the Army in 1992 and watching him go through all this, the exact same stuff. And I was like, well, this is why I created the business, so that when I would get to this point.
Well, to be honest, too, you felt the same pain in 2000, in the year 2000, right? You got out the first time, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to school," but what school? But and then you even brought it up at the time. You're like, "I got this car that I still need to make payments on, that I'm not making any money on." Like
Yeah.
things, all of those things. Like so, you had already felt
Yeah.
those pains and those struggles. The difference now is, again, you started a business 20 years previously. At this point, like, you can switch over from kind of looking at it part-time to now just full blown, this is
Yeah.
what you do. So tell me, let's talk about that real quick. Tell me about your business.
Yeah. So, when we were in ROTC, and you probably remember it because I was probably talking about it back then, but, I created an LLC back then, and I had learned how to. Now, in today's world, there's a ton of infomercials about what I do. And I would just tell you, in today's world, what they say in these infomercials or the get rich quick schemes, all of it's garbage. None of it is what I do. And so it's like straight bunk, right? And so the premise might be there, but it's not a get rich quick scheme. You're going to have to do it for a long period of time. There's even financial levels that you need to be at as a person if you're ever going to be successful at it. I didn't know this in the
Yeah,
beginning. So what
you're
it
a
is
20-year overnight success.
correct. So what it is I figured out on how to buy delinquent tax debt from the tax collector's office in the counties in Florida. And so when you don't pay your tax bill in the state of Florida, it turns into a tax lien. That lien gets auctioned off in an annual auction. They don't all get bought up. There's a bunch of leftovers every year. Well, there used to be every year, not anymore. Like, we're in much modern day today. But the idea, and you buy the debt. The debt's got high yield interest, right? And then you take that debt, and eventually, when you don't get paid, you're going to file what's called a tax deed application, which is really a tax foreclosure on the property. Now, when I say property, it's not a house. It's like an acre of land over here, right? Or maybe it's a buildable lot that somebody bought at some point in time. Maybe they passed away and they're not with us anymore. Thus, why they're not paying the real estate taxes anymore. So anyway, I got into this a long, long, long time ago, and I actually got into it at a pivotal time where the process of buying the debt was getting, in 2006, it was getting put onto the internet for the very first time. So you could buy it on over the internet back then, only in one county, in Polk County, Florida. So they're the first county that kind of went mainstream with this. And so I met with the Polk County, Florida tax collector in 2005, I think 2004, 2005. And before I met him, I had called the Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, their tax collector, and I knew enough about it that I had an intelligent conversation with the tax collector there, that they said, "Hey, do you live in Florida?" I was like, "No, I live in Virginia." And they're like, well, if you live in Virginia, you need to call Mr. Tedder, the tax collector in Polk County, because they're about to put it on the internet. You'll be able to buy stuff there. Here, we're still doing it in the room. You got to physically be here, hold a paddle, and all this stuff. And I was like, okay. So I meet Mr. Tedder, talk to him on the phone. By the end of that conversation, I'm a vendor for him, right? And so for the first 2 years, I'm doing everything in my name. I don't really have an LLC yet. I'm just doing it all in my name. Eventually, I create my first LLC, and I'm learning about it. How do you create an LLC? How do you do all this stuff? How do I move everything into the LLC? How do I do stuff from the LLC? And so, it just takes off from there. And then eventually, as time progresses, I start applying everything that the Army taught me into collecting delinquent real estate taxes, right? So a lot of analysis. We're making plans. We're executing. We're always trying to answer the why, right? The question why. And so that's what I did. I just applied that question why. So in collecting delinquent taxes, the why is like, why are people not paying their taxes?
Mm-hmm.
What are the reasonings? What is the reasons of why someone's not paying the real estate taxes on this type of particular property? You just go through this entire, gambit of analysis of like, okay, right? And then you start pulling data, and then you start doing data analysis. And now fast forward into modern times, now data analysis is like really simple and easy because everything's so modernized now. And so I just applied this along the way. And so eventually, it's making me money. And then I realized that, hey, if I really need to grow faster in it, there's a level of finances I need to be at. meaning that I only make money in interest. So if I'm only making money in interest with, let's say, the right hand in the business, I probably should not be paying interest to banks with credit cards, auto loans, mortgages with the right hand, because I'm literally just making a taxable event with the right hand, but theoretically taking that interest and paying it over here to the other bank, right? And so it took a while, maybe 5 years, to have that epiphany and be like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I need to stop that. So I had to then be like, okay, I had to change my life in the sense that I need to be debt free. So I'm not a big fan of Dave Ramsey, but I'm going to tell you, it works great for my business. You need to be debt free,
Fair.
right? And so because the interest you make with the right hand, you have to reinvest it, and you reinvest it, and it compounds off itself. So then you get the compounding interest aspect of all this, right? And I've been doing it the whole time I was in the Army, still doing it today, and it's grown to something really big and nice, right? And it grew to the point that this was the thing, the plan that I stuck with, that I made, that allowed me to reach that goal, that when it's my turn to retire, I'm not going to be like my father in the sense that I have to go find a job. I don't want to feel that pressure of having to go find the job, right? And do that really scary transition that all people in the military do, right? And so I wanted like some sort of insurance, that at least if I had to do it, there was at least something there that would just lessen the blow, right? And so yeah, man, that's been the greatest thing I've done in regards to making a plan and sticking with it, and building something. There's a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of ups and downs with it. It wasn't the roads to prosperity were not paved in gold. It was like sometimes it was
Yeah.
just
Well,
you
I
know
mean, if it's worth doing, it's worth working hard for. Nothing that's worth doing comes easy.
yeah.
Really is what it is.
So it's tough. I mean, like I said, there's commitments I had to make. Like I said, when my wife left me, I didn't remarry. I didn't create another family. I didn't have all that stuff. And so those are things that we want, right? Like, you create life, you want to have a family, you want to do these things. It's the American dream. And so, but there's a little bit of sacrifice I had to make, where it's like, okay, well, I did do it. I have it, right? Check the block. In the Army, what do we do?
Yeah.
Check blocks, right? Check the block, bro. And so, but now it's like, okay, I'm not going to invest in family in that sense again, right? I'm going to invest all my time and effort here, because there's a goal I need to make at the end, and it's time to retire, right? And so I got there. So I'm here today, and so yeah, man, it's got its pros and cons, though. Don't get me wrong, like
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
I am home all the time. So, when I'm not home, I do go travel. So I do go on, cruise. But I'm taking my parents out. My parents, like I said, they're in their late 70s. I'm here to take care of them, and so I'm just trying to spend some more family time with them and everything. But
And that makes sense, and that's very admirable. Okay, so I could talk to you for about another 2 hours, but I don't think the audience wants to listen to
no, not at all.
us ramble on for another 2 hours. So I'm going to wrap it up with two questions that I ask everybody.
Yeah,
The first one is, what in the transition process, and in your case, you had multiple transition processes.
yeah,
What's one thing that you took away from your transition processes that you would offer as advice to somebody who's about to go through transition process, or is in the middle of a
yeah.
transition process?
So I mean, I've got 3 DD214s, right? So, but I would tell you that the first one, I I had such a vague plan. I had an
Hmm.
incomplete plan, as we say in the Army, incomplete plan. So, I learned my lesson with that, right? I get to my second DD214. It's almost complete, but it's still incomplete plan, right? And so I'm learning along the way, right, that plans are important, right? And in learning to get to that end of that DD214, my father told me, make a plan and stick with it, right? Just stick with it, right? Um, and like we do in the Army, we do AARs on everything, right? Like we do an after action review on every plan that we do, right? So I would tell you is that if you know, maybe you don't know. Maybe you know you're going to make a career out of it. Maybe you know you're just going to do 4 years, like a 4-year enlistment, or maybe do your 4 years through your commissioning source. But you always should have a plan, but try to make this plan the most complete plan you could possibly make. You know, it's just like the first time you ran, and as an officer, remember when we were lieutenants, the first time you ran your first range, right? First time you ran a range, mine was a hand grenade range. So the thing is like you got to make a complete plan. And when you have to account for as much Murphy, as we say in the military, all the unknowns as much as you can. And so even if you get to the point where you think everything's gravy, like it did for me towards the end, right? You know, I was like, oh, I got this business that's great, man. Like I don't really feel the pressure. And Murphy did bite me, right? My business partner passed away, right? And so even if you feel like you're at the point where you just don't need it, you need to do it, right? So you just got to make a plan. Don't take things for granted. I took some stuff for granted. I took all the medical stuff that you do for granted, right? When I was in the army, it's like, sick call, forget that. You know, I'll man through it, right? I'm not worried about putting anything in my medical record, right? Like I'm here to do my job. I'll just do it, right? And so a lot of that stuff now has caught up with me now that I've gone through my VA, benefit stuff at the end, right? And so I just took a lot of stuff for granted. So I'd say don't take that stuff for granted. Make a plan. I mean, just plan it out the best you can, and you have to think deeper than phase one of that plan, right? So like in my first LADD214, it was just like I'm just doing this to go to college. Okay, that was phase one. I got to college. I had no idea what I was doing, right? There was no phase two, right? It just ended at phase one, right? And it was like, oh, what do I do, right? So think deeper. Complete the plan, all phases of your plan, right? So that when you get to the point, yeah. Now, granted, unfortunately, there are times in the military where something happens and it's like, hey, Aaron, I don't even have time to plan, right? Like I just got blown up over here and like I'm leaving the military, but medically because I'm pretty beat up, right? So unfortunately those things happen, right? It's a tough job, right? Like bad things happen. So if you still had some aspect of a plan, right? You're going to be okay, right? You'll have something to lean back on. When I was a lieutenant, I do my range and I learned a lot from it. And then it was like, all right, I had to Murphy that thing to death. So my lesson learned was when I was a company commander and I got to train lieutenants, I told my lieutenants, the first range I give you, I expect 120%. And I want you to account for every possible situation that could be out there, right? To the best of your and the reason why I want you to do it this way is because I want you to get in the habit of knowing that building such a great plan the first time is important because it creates a template for you. It's a template that at the end of that range, we're going to come back, we're going to AAR it. So we're going to know where all the holes are at, and then you're going to go back and fix it. And when you go back and I force you to fix it, because we always say, oh yeah, we're going to AAR that, we're going to go back and fix it. We never freaking fix it, right? Like it's always like, AAR is like, all right, out the window.
Yeah.
So I forced my lieutenants to go back and actually like fix it and then come back and rebrief me. And they hated me for it. So I know plans are important. I was a planner almost my entire life in the Army. And so you just have to take the time to drill into it. And, the Army teaches us the methodologies of doing it, right? So yeah, man, that's my big takeaway is you just have to dedicate a lot of time to something and it may build over time, right? So even now I'm out of the military. I literally have an active PowerPoint slide on my desktop that I map like future out into years, right? And it's like, all right, when does my son go to college? Here. When does he graduate? Here. Just so I know. So it's just like when we were in the Army and you remember your company commander's like, hey, show me your 20-year plan. That it was always that baseball card we had to fill out. And it was really just a forcing function to get you to think deeper at the end of the day. So all it was a forcing function to get you to think deeper. And so I took that to heart. I think I know what your next question is. Maybe I do. I don't know. But
Well, you should, because I told you before we started this show. But the next question is, what's one thing that you've done, and you've been in the Army 20 plus years, right? Counting all of your time. So, what is one thing that you've done or picked up in the Army that you still do to this day?
Oh yeah. Well, I plan everything to death, but there's a lot of things. I plan everything to death. I still get an Army haircut. I don't shave every day though. I do, like, I didn't shave this morning, but I don't know. There's other things that there's things I don't want to do anymore, and it's not that I'm ashamed of anything. Like, for instance, I don't wear anything Army anymore. Like, and it's not that I'm mad or upset or whatever. It's just like I literally just like got rid of everything, right? So like I don't, I'm not walking around with a veteran hat on. Not that it's a bad thing or anything. It's just like I don't want to do that. My dad does. I support him. I support all the veterans that are doing it. I personally just like, I feel like I've completed this, right? And I'll be the first to go see another veteran and shake his hand and be like, "Hey, thank you for your service," right? And they may not know that I serve too, right? But yeah, I didn't keep anything like that, and I don't want to. So for instance, like that's all I got, right?
Yep.
Mine. That's
Fair.
it. That's it. Like I see you got coins and everything, man. I don't have any.
Oh no, no, no! Don't take this personally, but this is not my house. This is not my
So
place.
so
I'm in the middle of sitting slash dog sitting
yeah.
while I'm while the person that I'm doing that for is overseas on a mission.
I'm sorry to extend this even longer, man, but there's one thing that does get to me, and to get off subject though, I just want to talk about real quick though. But it's I think I know I talked about, hey, yeah, business and everything seems great for me, right? But remember I said I was in the Army and I was working to the very last minute, right? And it was part of it's my fault, right? And it's about loyalty to the military and just like don't want to let anybody down, right? I would tell you what the biggest thing I've had to overcome since 2023, since I got out, was learning and having to tell myself it's okay not to be needed. Okay. That was because it was just extremely tough for me when I got out, because when I like lived the first couple of days of being out, I came home and I was like, yeah, every day is Saturday. Woo! I'm on leave forever. Right. And then it just TikTok, it got to the point where it was like, nobody's emailing me, nobody's calling me, nobody's telling me I need to do something. Boss isn't yelling at me. Like what am I doing? And I got a business, but it doesn't keep me busy all day long, right? But it was having to tell yourself it's okay to not be needed in that way. Like in the military, you're just boom, boom, boom. Everyone, if it doesn't matter where you are, even if you're the E4 man, you're needed, right? And so it's just that I had to overcome that. And it was a little rough for me. I will admit, man, it was a little rough of just having to wind things down to a point where it's like, okay, getting up, let me look at my dry eraser board. I like to-do lists on my board. So there you go. That's something I still do, right?
There you go.
I have a dry eraser board to my right that you don't see. And I literally every day write a to-do list, just like I was when I was in the Army. When I go into my office, what are the things I need to get accomplished today? And I write that down, right? But that's what's kind of helped me go through my whole transition through the day after my DD214s, in my journey, man. Hey man, thanks for letting me talk, man. Thanks for letting me be on your show.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks for coming. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming.
yeah.
So, for
Good.
everyone else, like, share, comment, subscribe. And as I say this again, if you get anything out of this, and I'm definitely stealing this from Sean Ryan, for those of you who know, if you get anything out of this, share it absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Aaron, thanks for joining me. We'll probably have to bring you back on, just to kind of give us another
Yeah, man,
perspective or
absolutely.
see how things are going for you later on in life.
Yeah, man. Anytime, man. And so, hey, I also have a YouTube channel. If you don't mind, do a little quick
Oh yeah,
shout
please
out for myself,
plug
man.
away.
Hey guys, if you want to know anything about what I talked about in my business, right, about Florida tax liens or Florida tax deeds in the state of Florida, you can follow me at Florida Tax Deed Secrets or at Florida Tax Deed Secrets on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel there. You could do a 1-hour consultation with me if you're interested in learning that stuff. And I will tell you right now, there is a lot of, let's just say, seminar type guys out there that will teach you something in a very vague aspect of it, right? And they're just professional salesmen too. to get your money, at some sort of course or whatever, right? But if you want to really know the deep or know the interesting aspects of it, or you really want to get, know somebody who's been doing it for at least 20 years, right? You can come visit me at FloridaTaxDeedSecrets.com. Thank you, man.
Yeah, not a problem. All right. Everyone, like I said, like, share, comment, subscribe. Later, lads.